How's everybody doing this morning? Welcome to my Sunday live stream where we talk about photography and catch up on what's going on. And it's really I like to think of it as a way for us as a community to get together and talk about photography and see how everybody's doing. So, excuse me. It's finally, most of my live streams, I just kind of plop down, turn on the camera, and just start to jibber jabber, right? But last night when I set up the stream, I was thinking maybe we should talk about a more specific topic because I've been shopping cameras lately, and I got this bug for the X100 VI, right? Because my local camera shop was taking pre-orders, and uh, thank God I didn't put a pre-order in for it because it'd have been the dumbest thing, the second dumbest purchase I've ever made. Biggest, the biggest dumbest purchase I ever made was that Sony A7R5. That was a chunk of change that I should not have spent. But anyhow, as I was shopping, I did buy two new cameras yesterday, but uh, I'll save those for another video. And they're nothing special. They're just little compact cameras that I got dirt cheap. And I'm gonna try and take some pictures with them, have a little bit of fun, and see how they turn out. But I was just curious because they were so cheap. I was like, I mean, how bad can these be, right? Uh, so we'll see, we'll see. But in the meantime, my topic basically is, are compact cameras kind of making a comeback? Because uh, with the X100 VI having quote unquote record numbers of pre-orders, which I still find hard to believe based on the kind of sales numbers that I've seen, over the last few years. Total worldwide shipments, in a month is maybe 500,000 tops, you know. It can go higher or lower from there, but it's around, we sell, according to SEPA, we sell about 7, 8 million cameras per year. And to say that one camera got a million pre-orders, we'll have to wait and see. Now, there is some data to kind of back that up, which I'll get into, because I put together a spreadsheet last night very quickly. So there might be some mistakes in it, but I think it's correct about camera shipments between interchangeable lens cameras, like our Olympus and Nikon, Canon, etc., and uh, non-interchangeable, like fixed lensed cameras, right? Super zoom cameras, fixed lens primes like the X100s, the Ricoh GR3s, etc. These cameras, just at least on YouTube, seem to be extremely popular for street photography in particular. But I wanted to see if there was really a trend of compact cameras coming back. If there's any data to kind of back that up, because you know how it is on YouTube, right? We new camera gets released, and these manufacturers, they give these cameras, to creators online to promote, which is fair. I think we as creators, when there's new products out, we love to get them and try them out and share with you our thoughts and opinions on them. But you always have to take it with a grain of salt, right? You don't want to, uh, fall into the hype, so to speak. And when I was looking at uh, views online for the X100V versus, say, the recently released OM1 Mark II, uh, there's actually a similar amount of interest. I think there was a bigger, some of the bigger channels were getting the X100VI, the X106. Um, so there's going to be more views on those as a, like for example, Frono's Photo and Chelsea, Tony and Chelsea, when they talk about the X100VI, for example, those are going to get a ton of views. So you have to kind of rule out statistically speaking, generally you rule out the outliers, right? The very high ones, the very low ones. But somewhere in the middle, there's it. My gut feeling was, and I didn't extrapolate and put that data together, but my general feeling was that uh, Olympus, or I'm sorry, OM Systems did a good job of promoting the OM1 Mark II, and Fuji's done a great job without, you know, in the same manner, meaning that there's a lot of people reviewing these camera systems, and now they're just starting to get in the hands of people, and hopefully they'll get in the hands of some people that you trust and rely on, and not just the bigger influencers or creators on the channel. So, me personally, I'm never going to get the X100VI. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with the camera, of course. It's a fantastic camera, but uh, and it's very unlikely I'll get the OM1 Mark II. I might skip and wait for a Pen F2, or I just after I chunk that money on that A7R5, it's hard for me to stretch again another $2,000-3,000 for. Oh, I'm gonna be paying off that A7R5 for 2 or 3 years on my credit card. Um, but anyhow, the other thing that came to mind were the compact cameras, the Digicam kinda craze, right? They're kinda making a comeback, and I'm just shocked at the prices people are asking for the these old, cheap, stupid cameras, compact cameras. I'll give you a very, very recent example. This Canon ELPH 180. I think I paid $130 for this, brand new in the box about 3 or 4 years ago, and I got a free memory card with it, whatever. I got a good deal on this because it was retailing for 159, brand new. And this came out in 2016. I bought this, I think, in 2019 or so, about 4 or 5 years ago. And what's interesting about this, and the reason I think the prices jumped to like $200-300, which is insane for this is a piece of crap camera, honestly. But uh, the pictures are okay, right? But I think what's driving the price is because this is a CCD sensor in a relatively modern camera. Uh, 20 megapixel CCD sensor with a zoom. I think it's like a 24 to 70, something like that. Shoots only JPEG, and it does 720p video like CCD sensors in general. That's all they could do. Why? Why? This should be like a $30 camera right now, right? This should be like a box lot of like 100 other cameras in a box that you could buy for like 50 bucks. You know, but these things are going for premium. Another one, this one here, my XZ2, which I should do a video about this because Maddie and Robin have done videos on this, on not this one, the XZ1, which is the CCD version of this. This is the CMOS version, right? But there's a lot of improvements here. It has a tilt screen, um, better noise performance, and I guess that's about it. Other than that, oh, and 1080p video. So this is a good camera. Takes great pictures. What really makes this camera so good is the lens. It starts at f1.8 on the wide end, and it only goes to 2.5 on the long end at 100 millimeter equivalent. So it's a really fast lens, and that gives you the advantage of shooting at lower ISOs without sacrificing your depth of field. You can still get a nice deep depth of field at 1.8 and shoot them very low light. And that's what gives this makes this an ideal camera for like low light street photography. And I'll show you some examples. But I you know, I just can't believe it. And I got a bunch of other pocket cameras up here, and there's a couple more that I can't find right now. like my Fuji F10, which I bought new, and all these cameras. These are all my own cameras that I bought. This Fuji here, this is my very first Fujifilm, or actually my very first digital camera. This MX2700, 2 megapixel. I got a new battery for it recently, and it works great. Takes great pictures. And I'll show you a couple from this one. Unfortunately, I can't find a lot of the pictures I took with this. My sister has a bunch because I gave it to her because I wasn't using it. I gave it to her, and then she bought a Nikon and then gave this back to me, right? So I have a bunch of pictures. I'm a little nervous about showing you pictures she took with this because, it's my family and all that. Maybe I'll show you one or two. Uh, this one I bought shortly after I bought the MX2700. This is the same sensor and processor as the MX2700, but it has more manual controls. I think this came out in 2009, somewhere around there. No, I'm sorry, 2001. I mean, this camera's like 20 years old, right? Had a little LCD screen, a hot shoe for a flash. Takes the same battery and has a zoom lens at f2.3. I'm sorry, not f. That's the megapixel. A 2.3 megapixel. I don't know what the aperture is, but this camera has kind of died on me. When I take pictures with it, the images are very fuzzy now. Not because they're out of focus, but I think the sensors has just faded on it. So, but it has a nice LCD screen on the back, and it had some pretty advanced features. Exposure compensation and a couple other things I can't remember. Some filters. But I get it. These cameras can take great pictures too, and I can see why people at least 5 years ago could buy these cameras dirt cheap. And I think that's about when the Digicam craze kind of started, at least online, where people were buying these little compact cameras. And now, because of the demand is so much, and the fact that film is getting really expensive, and then every time you see a thumbnail that says, this camera shoots like film, it gets like 100,000 views, right? It's like, why? Why? It really doesn't. It really doesn't shoot like film. Nothing shoots like film. Now, the earlier digital cameras, they did try to imitate film colors, right? Because that's what film photographers were used to, and to get them into digital photography, you wanted to try to recreate and make better what film could do, but you don't want to be so far off. But now cameras are so clinically perfect, right? Or can be, that you can get perfect colors out of them with color calibration and all kinds of things. And that's, and that's how I feel about like uh my Sony. It's kind of like, and this is how I felt about my very first Sony. My Sony was my very first interchangeable lens camera as well. That's kind of buried deep in the back here. My Sony NEX6, because I went from a Fuji F10, pocket camera, which I don't know why it's not like right here. It should be around here. But it's about the same size as this, but it's a horizontal with the button on the top. It's more like this, but silver. But I upgraded from that camera to a Sony NEX6 APS-C with a 16 to 50 kit lens, and I still have that camera. And that camera price has gone up. I mean, a few years ago, you could buy that camera for $100. Now it's going for like 220 to 250. And then you throw the lens on, you're at 300 some dollars. I mean, we're getting up to near what I paid for it brand new. I just don't understand, you know, why people are paying so much for these cameras when there's so many available. And then there's really fantastic cameras out there that don't get any joy at all, you know? For example, the Nikon P7100, 10 megapixel CCD sensor, 28 to 200 zoom, full manual control, optical view. I mean, it's a really great camera. I was really tempted to buy, and you can get it for like 150 bucks, right? Less than 200 all day long, in great condition. Canon G12, same thing. Uh, both excellent old CCD cameras, and if you want to move up to CMOS cameras, which technically are superior, uh, you might even pay less because for whatever reason, people want CCD, and I think the difference in color between CMOS and CCD is negligible, and the difference is really in the processing of the raw image, or excuse me. It's got nothing to do with the sensor, is what I'm saying. It has to do with all of the processing behind the sensor, and some of the philosophy of digital cameras early on, trying to be more film-like. But ultimately, when you look at pictures side by side, CCD, CMOS, yeah, it's extremely hard to tell the difference. All you have to do is change the white balance a little bit, and you know the two cameras look identical if you correct for white balance. There are still some very, very subtle differences, but not worth double the price in some cases, right? Um, so yeah, compact cameras. So let's get to the thing. Well, let me get to the chat section here, and let me see who's come in. Um, I just had to get kind of a preface to what I wanted to talk about today. So Darko, good to see you. And wow, you had a Konica S2 and all kinds of stuff. Cool. And you're considering a G9 II in the future for lightweight birding. Yeah, you always got to feel it in your hands. I had the S5, right, which is the same body as the G9 Mark II, and I didn't find it very comfortable in the hand. Is kind of like a brick compared to my Olympus EM1 Mark III at the time. And so I wouldn't consider it for myself, all in one, all day long, every day for me. And good morning, Roger. Good to see you from Massachusetts. It's sunny here today. I'm going to try and get out and shoot today. And it's warm. I think it's going to be like 60 degrees. And can I recommend a 5-inch recording monitor? I cannot. The only one I'm familiar with is I think it's the Ninja 5. It's about $500 or $600. I've seen them on sale for $400, but then when you add the accessories that get it to work with a camera, it's closer to 500 anyway. I think the Ninja V is the best. It's kind of the benchmark. I did see some commercials for uh, third party, like non-mainstream, Chinese-made Neewer, and another one. I think Thomas Eisel might have a video out now because I saw a thumbnail this morning where he was showing a 5-inch monitor. I'm not familiar with that one. But I think it's best to get the Ninja V because that that's a quality product, right? That you can count on and rely on. Um, good morning, Wayne. Good to see you. And good morning, Robin. You somewhat regret selling your Minox being raw. Yeah. I know it's tough, right? It's tough. You think about the cameras. I'm trying to think if I have any cameras I've sold that I do kind of regret selling my S1R. I want to get it back so badly, but I can't justify it because maybe one day when I'm in a better position financially. I'm just not right now. I haven't had any photo jobs in months. It's been like since October. I mean, normally that's how it is with business. right? You gotta it's kinda feast or famine, so you gotta save up when you're making the money so you can kinda stretch, but this is a pretty long stretch for me. And not that I'm trying that hard to find new business, but it's it's getting pretty lean. And I quoted a job yesterday. I just can't understand it. I quoted a job yesterday for a little 1,000 square foot office, and not a big office, but $250. That's not much to have a professional photographer go out and take awesome images of the property that you're trying to sell. And I get it. It's vacant, so it's just, going to be four or five walls. And then outside the building, the parking lot, then the common areas, all the stuff you do when you do commercial property. So I might deliver 15 to 20 images max, right? Plus a floor plan. $250. And it's like a 30 mile drive, So with traffic and all, we're talking a couple hours round trip, about an hour on site, and then about an hour and a half processing. So, I'm out 4 or 5 hours to make $250, but I'll do it if I can get a new client for some of the bigger jobs, right? Where they want to do video and bigger properties where I can charge more. But they didn't want to do it. And I'm just wondering, I don't know. They just I guess not everyone sees the value. And I get it. Ultimately nice pictures of a property don't sell it, because especially commercial, because all they really need to see is a floor plan and location, right? And then because they're going to gut the property anyway and refit it to their own purpose. The only exceptions being like medical offices and restaurants. Generally, those uh, they don't they refit it to some extent to their own style, but all of the equipment and everything, anyway. I don't know why I'm talking about that. Anyhow, Wayne, I've been thinking about getting a Pen Mini and perhaps a GM5. Yeah. But they're expensive, like crazy. They're selling now used for as much as they were when they were brand new. I just don't get it. I mean, if you have that kind of if you have that kind of scratch laying around that you can just buy whatever you want, great. Enjoy, gear acquisition. It's perfectly fine. I enjoy buying gear all the time, and it fulfills my life in ways that just make no sense, but whatever. If it's my money, who cares, right? Who cares what I do with my money? But at the same time, uh, I'm always looking for a deal. Like, I'm not going to pay full price for something, and I'm certainly not going to pay for a used one more than it cost brand new, with rare exceptions. I mean, if there was something really special about a GM5, then maybe. I don't see it. There's nothing special about it to me other than being kind of compact, right? Because it's probably about the same size as my XZ2. You put a little pancake lens on it, and it's going to give you better image quality than this, right? Theoretically, uh, pancake lenses are usually going to have a slower lens because this is an f1.8, so this is going to have almost a two-stop advantage over a kit lens. And you're gonna get better images out of this ultimately if you compare it to a kit lens, right? Um, and hello, System Matura. Hello, Graham, Harold Graham. I want a Penex to build a third gen. I want Panasonic to build a third gen LX1. Um, well, I know they got the LX3 and LX5. I don't remember the LX1. They have an LX10 now with a 1-inch sensor. I was tempted by that, but they're asking for it brand new and used about the same price. I mean, that should be like a $200 camera right now on the used market, but it's selling for like 5, 600, and new ones are selling for 6, 700. It's just insane. Oh, okay, you corrected here. LX100. Yeah, so they have the LX100 version 2. So you want a third gen. Uh, I guess 3rd gen, they could put in their new 25 megapixel sensor. What else can they do with it though? Improve the EVF, make it weather sealed, uh, and give it a tilt screen, right? And then it'll be somewhat competitive with something like the Fujifilm X100, I think. But there's 2 things that I think get too much hype. And Marco's here. Hey, Marco, how you doing? Thank you so much. For Marco is extremely generous and sent me a bottom plate for my OM1. Um, this really right stuff. This is perfect. I love bottom plates on all my cameras, so I can just drop it onto a tripod. Uh, and this fits perfectly. Before I was just using a small Arca Swiss plate until I could find, because again, I didn't want to spend 80, $100 for a bottom plate, so I just used a tiny Arca Swiss plate for a little while. And I was waiting for a third party, because third party you can get usually for 25, $30, right? Because you know me, I'm always looking for a deal. I just can't see myself spending 80 to $100 for something that I think third party I should be able to get for like $30. So that's why I waited. It's not that I don't have 80 bucks, right? Sometimes I don't, but so really thank you, Marco. This is one of the nicest things I've ever gotten, and very thoughtful of you. I really appreciate that. And I really appreciate all the coffees and donations you guys send to me. Uh they they're they really help me out a lot, and I always try and put it back into the channel when I can. um any money I get so I can, make new content, of course. I always do the best I can. If it's not that, then I try and do the tutorials or answer questions, and of course the live streams where we can come together. So thank you, Marco. I appreciate it. Um, and then also, yeah, Marco also got his all-in-one Mark II and 150 to 600. So when he gets some more field time with it, I'm going to bring him on as a guest, and we're going to talk about his experience with it, because it's definitely not in my near future, that camera and lens. Not because I don't want it, it's just it's expensive. Um, so look for that in the coming weeks. Um, and Eric says, I just want to get a GR4. I'd get the 3, but how fast releases are now, especially quick, the X100V, which you pre-ordered, came out. I'd hate to invest in Ricoh right before they're late. Yeah. So that that goes to the hold on a second. Okay, sorry about that. Um, that goes to the fear of missing out theory, right? We always feel like we're missing out on something, and we don't want to miss out on a new camera coming out. Um, so that's partially why I'm waiting, right? I'm in the same boat, in the sense that I could probably swing an OM1 Mark II. I mean, on a credit card, that is. But then if the Pen F2 comes out, I'll be like, oh damn, how am I gonna, I just can't do it. It's just so much, right? Um, let's see. Hopefully we'll see some additional MFT cameras this year. Yes, I hope so. And have 4 Olympus cameras, and it's my newly acquired XZ1 that gets taken out with me. Yes. I'm tempted by the XZ1 because it's essentially the same as this XZ2, but CCD sensor. And I'm only tempted by it in the sense that I just want to show people there's not that much difference between this and a CCD. Or maybe there is, you know? I won't know it's an Olympus. Olympus, this is the one thing I can say about Olympus and OM Systems now. Every camera I've ever bought from them, I've never been let down. They have all been met or exceeded, mostly exceeded my expectations. So I can't say that about any other camera brand that I've purchased, which is everything, right? Nikon, Sony, Canon. Well, I haven't bought any modern Pentaxes. The one Pentax I have is really good, actually, but that doesn't really count. Um, but if I was happy with my first Sony, I wouldn't have bought a Nikon. And if I was happy with my first Nikon, I wouldn't have bought uh, Olympus, right? And it's not like I was unhappy with Nikon, but when I bought a little Olympus camera just to kind of have a pocketable carry around thing, I was just amazed by it. Everything about it. And then so that's a true story about switching from Nikon to Olympus. I mean, I switched from full frame Nikon to Micro Four Thirds because I was just so impressed by its capabilities, its image quality, the build quality, and a lot of the features and customization. I mean, it was just unbelievable. And yeah, of course, there's always compromises with smaller sensors, but the benefits and the other things far outweighed it in my case. All of the things that the Olympus offered far outweighed any compromises I got in image quality because you can overcome compromises to image quality through skill set, right? Being a better photographer or software on the back end, all that stuff. So, and oh my goodness, Robin Wong, how you doing, buddy? Your last stream, I only caught the replay, kind of inspired the topic today, because I thought you brought up a lot of great points about the X100VI and why it's such a hit. I'm still a little skeptical that it really pre-ordered 1,000,000 pieces, I mean, we're gonna have to see the SEPA data to see if that actually happened and if they can deliver on that, but no question, there's a lot of hype around it. And certainly everywhere now that you look for pre-orders, they're all back ordered now. So whatever stock came in is gone. So it's certainly, but I can say the same thing about the OM1 Mark II, at least at my local store. They had some come in, they're all gone. But yeah, it's great to have you here, Robin. Always good to see you. Um, and John says, glad you didn't drink the Fuji Kool-Aid. Yeah, I mean it's a great camera, but uh let me just get to a couple other things here. Fuji X100 doesn't have Fuji Magic results wise, and I had the F31 decades back. Ooh, the F31. That's a upgraded model from my F10 that I had. And there's a couple F10s. I had the older one, the 6 megapixel F10. I think there was another one. But anyway, um Robin says, I don't think compact cameras are coming back. Cameras always been there. Smartphones ate a huge chunk of the market, but it's still there. Yes. Let me just get caught up a little bit. Let's hold that thought, and I want to get into compact cameras in the market. Oh, the A5100. Yeah, great little camera. Weird colors, though. I never liked the colors out of my Sony NEX6, and I imagine the 5100 is very similar. And the X100V is more for oldest daughter, so she can do concerts and outings with. Oh, okay. But I'm gonna play with the camera for a couple of months first. GR4, whenever it's made, will be for me. Wow. Yeah, good luck keeping that from your daughter. If she sees you has it, yeah, it's gone. And JMP says, sadly, compact cameras are dead. Cell phone cameras are way too good for everyone but photography enthusiasts. There aren't enough enthusiasts to keep it going for another decade. So sad. Yes. I don't disagree with that too much. How much did you pay for A7 V? It's the A7R5, the 60 megapixel one. So you bought a secondhand A1 in mint for 4,500 pounds. So that's about 5,000 US, right? I got mine for about $2,900 all in because I got some rebates and discounts, and I traded a beater camera in that I paid nothing for, and they gave me 50 bucks. So I got 50 bucks there, etc. Around 2,900 bucks, which is $1,000 below the current retail price. Um, Brand new USA warranty, everything, right? I got it A7. And this goes back to my conversation last week. I was looking at an A7R4, which was around $1,800. I was looking at the A7 II, which is like $1,000 with the lens. But it's like, it's just creep, right? It's like, okay, A7 II, but for a little more, I can get an A7R4. But man, the A7R5, if I do this, that, and the other thing, I can get that for like 3,000 or less. And I'm like, and that's 1,000 below the current. I'm like, so I wanted to get the deal. So I feel like I could sell my A7R5 right now for what I paid for it, which is amazing, right? Which has crossed my mind time to time. But it's starting to grow on me, that camera, but it has some weird limitations that kind of set me back a little bit and messed up some of my images, which I'll have to talk about the A7R5 more in another video. But that stupid camera only has a 1/8,000th of a second maximum shutter speed? Or is it minimum? Yeah, minimum shutter speed is 1/8,000th of a second. Even in electronic or mechanical, 1/8,000th. And I'm trying to shoot that 0.095 lens that I got, that I did a review on, which nobody watched apparently. But the 25 millimeter 0.95, and I was getting overexposed images in the daytime because I was trying to shoot wide open at 0.95, and I just assumed the shutter would go up to 132,000th or 150,000, like my OM1, right? And it didn't. It went up to 1/8,000th and then stopped, and I was like, What? What?" So I came home and I looked at the manual, and I'm like, really, 1/8,000th of a second on a camera like this? I mean, I get it, that you can put an ND filter on or just shoot at f2.8, which I ended up doing, but that's not why you buy a 0.95 lens. You don't buy a 0.95 lens to shoot at 2.8. Uh, oh, Wayne, you got an XZ1. What'd you pay for it? I'm curious, because I'm seeing them for around 250, give or take. Starting to sound like you become a small version MPB. I know, right? Trust me, I don't have half as many cameras as some people I've seen. And Sixta says, the only camera in my box of old compacts that could possibly raise any interest is my Fuji 3D. Oh, yeah. That's a classic. You can't, of course, that assumes you have a 3D TV that you could display the images on, right? But that was a very interesting camera. The G100 doesn't get joy at all, yet it can work very well. Yes. um, the G100 is very, very tempting because I was looking at the LX100 version 2, which is selling for some $1,000. It's selling for what it sold for brand new, which is ridiculous. But I can get a G100 open box or something for like $300 with the lens, right? No, there's no love for that camera. And it's better in every way over the LX100 for the lens, right? If you want to get a fast 1.7 lens, it'd be much bulkier than an LX100. F2.5s, the 14 f2.5. The 21.7 is an exception. You can put the 20 millimeter, but I'm not that crazy about that focal length. I really like the 28 if I'm gonna be shooting with a camera like that, and if I wanted to get that field of view, I'd have to get the 14 2.5, which gets mixed reviews. I think Robin and Maddie really liked it, but then there's some other people that hated it, including some of you guys here. I guess I have to get one for myself. They're only like $100 used, right? Um, and Thomas, good to see you. Always good to see you. And you still have the TZ4. Wow. Yeah, that's an oldie but a goodie. Back in the days when they used to make really fancy looking cameras, right? Oh, the 6400. Yes. That's a cool little camera. I'm looking at the P 7100. Oh, the S series though I think were the more compact cameras, not the versus the P series had the slightly larger sensor. Have I tried any tracking with your Sony or Fuji? Oh, I have not. I have not compared. I have 2 issues with it, doing a comparison like that. I don't have really comparable lenses, uh, because if we're talking about, like, tracking of my face, they all do a pretty good job of that, right? I have a 50 millimeter lens that I can, equivalent that I can put on all 3 cameras, and they're all pretty close. You can get all of them to mess up if you want to, right? And you can get all of them to perform great if you want to. So I don't think that kind of test would be very indicative. The kind of testing that I think you really want to see is like birds in flight, more sports action type stuff where tracking is going to be more critical, right? Because things are moving pretty fast. And I would need a much longer lens. I might be able to compare my Fuji uh, with the 55 to 200 against my, but I don't have any really good lenses for my Olympus at that focal length. I just have the 40 to 150 kit lens, which is a great, super fat, super sharp lens, but I don't know if those focusing motors are quite as good as, say, the ones in the Fuji, which use linear motors. So it'd be a tough call. I just don't have comparable lenses in the right focal length to track fast moving objects. Because if I'm trying to, like, I could get Ellie to run around in the backyard and see how well it tracks, but to do it in a consistent way, I'd have to get a longer focal length where I can pan and track her. Yeah, it's hard. It's hard for me to do that kind of testing without having comparable lenses on each system, because then one system will have an advantage over the other, right? Uh, and I don't have any lenses for my Sony. I've bought 2 lenses for my Sony. The 55 1.8 from Zeiss, awesome lens, which I got used for $400, and uh, I just picked up the kit lens 28 to 60 because I wanted to get a 28 millimeter focal length. Uh, there's the 28 millimeter f2 from Sony, which I strongly considered, but for a little less money, I was able to get the kit lens, which also is 28 millimeter, but it's an f4. But I don't care about that. Uh, so I don't have any long lenses for the Sony, and yeah, anyway, that's a long answer. And then System says, I bought an L-type bracket with handle, which can attach to Arca Swiss plate and SSD. Oh, wow. 5-inch screen and should strap 1 screw. Yes. That would be awesome if you're doing sort of like a wildlife, because I think you do wildlife video, and all of that makes a lot of sense, doing all of that. Any recommendations to upgrade the EM10 Mark II? I love it so much, but mine has an issue with the dial mode. It keeps switching. Yeah. My dial mode is a little flaky too now. I've dedicated my EM10 Mark II to streaming here, so you're looking at the EM10 Mark II right now. Um, I would go EM1 Mark II. I mean, it depends on your budget, right? You can upgrade to an OM1 Mark II, and the Mark IV has 4K video and 20 megapixels, I think, but I don't think they're quite as good as the EM10 Mark II. And if you don't mind buying new batteries and stuff, the EM5 Mark II is an awesome, awesome upgrade to the EM10 Mark II. And ultimately, I think staying in that range, the EM1 Mark II would be a much better upgrade over over the EM5 Mark II, mainly for the phase detect. Autofocusing is so much better. The autofocusing and the EM1 Mark II doesn't suffer from shutter shock at slower shutter speeds. If your shutter speeds below 1/350th of a second on the EM5 Mark II, you have to be very conscious of shutter shock if you use mechanical shutter, particularly at longer focal lengths. Um, but yeah, EM1 Mark II would be probably the best thing to upgrade to. You would not regret that purchase because the battery life alone, the autofocusing, those two things are huge. And then you get high-res shot mode, you get focus stacking and bracketing, or focus stacking. They both have bracketing. Uh, just name a couple of things. And then, the video, of course, 4K video with microphone jack. So there's a lot of benefits, but the key benefit, because I think you can get them for about $100. Um, it's one of those like mission creep things, right? You can buy another EM10 Mark II for $300, an EM5 Mark II for about $400, or an EM1 Mark II for about $500. And I think I think it's worth it each step. It's worth that extra $100 for each step up. And of course, if your budget is wide open, an OM1 Mark II all day long. Yeah, $100. You got a deal. That's what I need to do. I need to kind of wait. I'm looking at a box lot right now that has a couple of cameras I want. One of them is the Nikon P7100, and it has an Olympus XZ10, like a little cool little compact camera. Only shoots JPEG, but it's really cool looking. I want to get that. Yeah, skill always trumps tracking. Absolutely. Um, crap, my my chat just jumped out of the way. Yes, the EP7 is really nice. It's a little bit scarce here in the US because it's not a US model. Uh, I wouldn't mind having one, but like I said, I'm saving for my Pen F2 if it ever comes out. Hey Walter, how you doing? Good to see you. When the weather's getting warmer, we need to go out and do some shooting. Um, okay, so let me talk about a couple of things that Robin Wong mentioned in his stream last week or earlier this week about this formula for the X100V, and then we'll get into the data that I collected. The two things that stood out to me, because there's a lot of small, compact, lightweight cameras out there, right? LX100 version 2, G7X, there's all kinds of, RX100s, a lot of compact cameras that are all very competent, lots of features, in various shapes, sizes, right? But the X100V, I think the key things he was talking about was that it's weather sealed, has a tilt screen, and is pocketable, meaning, the lens is pancake. It's basically a pancake lens with the leaf shutter, and then the retro design. And if you're looking for a fixed lens camera with a fixed focal length, I think it's fixed at 35 millimeters. right? I can't think of any. The Leica Q series, the Leica Q has a fixed 28 millimeter, but that thing ain't compact, right? It is weather sealed, I'm sure, but it ain't it ain't compact. It's not pocketable like the X100V. And then there's the RX1R version 2, whatever, the Sony. That's a full frame. I think that's a 35 millimeter compact camera. But again, it's not pancake lens, right? It sticks out. It's pretty thick, relatively speaking. So the two things about the Fuji that a lot of people that apparently the formula is correct, just don't speak to me is one is the weather sealing. I'm not hung up about weather sealing personally. You can't put it in your coat pocket anymore, right? But I'm just as happy to take this out as I am this one, right? Because I'm not worried if the camera can be slid into my pocket or not. I mean, I'm not taking pictures of the inside of my pockets, so I get it. If you want to be able to carry it around with you everywhere, but how many people really want to? I don't know. I guess I'm not a street photographer in a big way that I'm worried about putting this in my pocket and then just whipping it out at a moment's notice to take a picture. Usually, I have the camera on a strap, and I just have it ready to go, right? Just like this. I walk around like this. And it's so small. Even this one is really small, compact. It's no big deal. It doesn't get in the way of me doing all the other things I would do while I'm out on the street or on vacation, whatever. So, you know, I could get a pancake lens for my Pen PL8 or my Pen F, and it would be coat pocketable when I'm at home because I put this on a tripod a lot, so I almost always have this on here. But a lot of times I take this plate off and the just go with it like this. It's not a big deal. This is pretty thin, and it's still semi-pocketable in a bigger coat pocket. But if I have my OM1 on me, again, this is everybody thinks this is a big camera. It's not really a big camera. It really isn't. When I pick this up, say against God, where are my other bigger cameras? Have I done any tracking tests between the two? I just don't have comparable lenses, right, to do a fair test. But uh, and look at this stupid strap I had to get for it. I had to buy a seatbelt strap because this thing is so freaking heavy. You know, I mean, the Peak Design strap would have been a little bit nicer, but man, I got this strap for 20 bucks, and this is a quality strap. I ain't paying 60 bucks for a Peak Design strap. Um, Let me check my text real quick. Sometimes I get a text. Lots of people in the chat saying buffering. Oh, I don't know what to do about the buffering. I'm sorry, guys. Uh, I would love to get down and optimize. Let me check. I'm on 5G 2. I should be okay. Oh, sorry about the buffering. What I should do is probably do a full reset of everything before I go on a stream. Maybe that will do it. But anyhow, so the kind of magic formula for Fuji's X100V that Robin talked about, it wasn't a formula for me uh, that made any sense. The biggest deal breaker for me on the Fuji X100V is the fixed focal length. I don't. I'd hate to be stuck Thanks, Walter. Walter texts me. Um, I hate to be stuck at 35 millimeters on a camera I just spent 2 grand on. You know what I mean? It just ugh. I mean, there's the Leica Q2 and Q3, that's a different ball game, right? That's because those are fixed lens cameras, fixed, primes, right? They're 28 millimeters. That would be hard for me to swallow. I'd rather bump up and get like an M11 or an M10 where I can change the lens to whatever I want. But anyhow, so it's not a bad camera at all. I'm not saying the Fuji X100V, anything bad about that camera. I'm just saying it's just not the right camera for me, uh, for the reasons I mentioned, right? So I wouldn't mind playing with one for a little bit, but I had an X100F, just like Robin. Robin had the same camera I did, probably around the same time, and we both sold it, right? It's because it just doesn't fit our style of or our mojo, really. Because we can shoot with 35 millimeters all day long on any camera. It's not a big deal. But when you're shooting with one that is only 35 millimeter, all of a sudden it's like, why do I have this camera when I have these other cameras where I can just change the lens and put something else on it? Yeah, I know Marco. Marco's talking about my wireless. Um, I'm not sure because I set up my router has 3 transmitters, and I set up this computer is the only one on that one particular transmitter receiver channel. And I got all my other devices, my cameras and not my, but like my security cameras and whatever else, other laptops and computers. They're all on 5G1. This is on 5G2. And then I have a standard, like regular N channel. But anyway, uh, I do have more routers though. And that's assuming that the problem is here. The problem might be with the streaming company I'm using, right? Because it has to go through the streaming company before it gets to YouTube. Um, okay, so let's look at the data because I've been jibber jabbering for an hour now. And we haven't even looked at any of the data I put together. Uh, wow, this is going to be hard to see. It's so tiny. Let me put it over here. Share screen window, this one. Oh, that's not too bad, I guess. Maybe I can enlarge it. All right, so this is from the SEPA data, right? And for 2024, January of this year, they shipped 504,478 cameras worldwide. Compared to January 2023, they shipped 374,000. So what you can see here is a 34% increase, right? Year over year. But you have to take into account any camera releases uh, that might drive that number higher for that month, right? So we have to look at the overall trend. But when you look at this January number, because the OM1 Mark II and the X100VI, I think some of these numbers might be related to that. Some of this shipment. Now, what does shipment mean? Is the shipment from the factories, Sony, Olympus, OM Systems, Nikon? Are they talking about what they ship directly from their factories to the stores? Or are they talking about shipments going to the customers? I have to assume it's the shipments coming directly from the manufacturers to the stores, the retailers. So there has to be some lead time. So this might be a sign here. The reason this number is 34% higher is because of OM1 Mark II and X100V, the two cameras that were announced and or rumored in that month, right? Because right now in February, the X100V is for sale, the OM1 Mark II is for sale. So I suspect this number is higher because of that. And let's look at 2023 January, right? February was higher. It's getting higher in March. This, I think, is because there's a lot of spring sales on cameras. So if you're thinking about buying a camera, this is the month. You want to wait towards the end of the month when spring starts and all the spring sales come out. Because look what got announced and or released. The Canon R8, I wrote it up here. Because there's a pretty big jump, right? From 90% to 119%. There's a 40% jump here. I'm sorry, 30%. We had the Canon R8, the Canon R50, the Sony ZV-E1, and then in May, we had the Nikon Z8. So we had a lot of cameras released and or announced, you know, March, April, May, in this time range. So we see this big jump here, right? 700,000 cameras in May shipped. And then it starts to drop. It picks up again in July. No camera announcements of significance here. But then look in September. In September, we had the A7C2, A7CR, the Fujifilm GFX, the Nikon ZF, and the Panasonic G9 Mark II. Bunch of cameras in September announced or released. And we got 831,000 shipments in September, right? And then October it drops, November it dropped, December it dropped, right, to 582,000. And then if we go back to January, you know, I'm sorry, to January, it's picked up again. And again, that's because the OM1 Mark II and Fujifilm X100V, I think some of this, so it'll be very interesting to see what happens in February, to see if that number jumps significantly. Because if the rumors are true that they pre-sold 1 million cameras, this shipment, because look over here, we have 831,000 over here. This number in February needs to be closer to that number, 800 and some thousand, if that's the most popular camera ever, if not 1 million. The X106, I'm sorry, thank you, Walter, the X106. So there's that. Now, if we look at 2023 compared to 2022 in general, I don't know what this number is, ignore that. But these two numbers here is about a 3.5% drop in overall sales from 2022 to 2023. So not bad. That's not the huge decline that we saw in previous years, right? We saw huge drops in previous years. So this is relatively stable, considering all the things like that there was shortage of chips and other events going on that would interrupt the supply, shipment, manufacturing of cameras on and off throughout the year, right? So, but the fact that the number is relatively stable is a very, very good sign, in my opinion, that we didn't see another steep decline of cameras, you know, because camera prices have gone way up, right? 10, 20% across the board on the new market. And on the used market, they're going up 100%, some ridiculous number. But speaking to just new sales, this is very encouraging. And the fact that we had, you know, 500,000 shipments in January of 2024, Again, I think that's very, very encouraging. But if you look at 2022, I didn't look at what cameras were released in 2022 and the timelines there. But with projecting, forecasting, and research and development, and how much they can invest and how much they can sell, they can better project what's going on. But when things were in a steep decline, everybody kind of stopped, right? Uh, everybody had to take a breath, either because of the pandemic or chip shortages. Those are all related, right? Whatever other world events are going on, uh, they're going to have to take a breath. Now let's look at compact cameras, right? These are the fixed length cameras, FLC, fixed length cameras. So these could be super zooms. These could be fixed primes like the Leica Q2 or the Fuji X100V or the, whatever. There's not many fixed length primes, right? Fixed focal length cameras out there. There's only probably less than 5 total, if that many. So we're talking about really compact zoom cameras, right? And then interchangeable lens cameras. So that's going to be our micro four thirds, our L mounts, the F mount, Z mount, RF mounts, all our different mounts, for our cameras, APS-C, full frame, etc. I don't think they counted medium format like GFX 100, stuff like that. I think they only counted full frame or lower, but don't quote me on that. I'm not sure. I might have been looking at a different statistic. So what we have here is total. All right, let's look at 2023. Total number of shipments in 2023, 772,000 or 7,720,505. So you can see that that number matches that number over there. Fixed length cameras represented, and I have the number here, 22% of all sales. Interchangeable lens cameras represented 77.7%. In 2022, 26% were 6%. And let me go back. I went back to 2018. Is that right? Yeah. Oh, 2018. In 2018 and 2019, even 2020, right? Fixed lens cameras were representing 44%, 40%, but then it dropped here, 36%, 26%, another big drop. And then 22%, not as big a drop. A little bit less, right? Only 4%, versus here we had a big 10% drop. We had a 4% drop, 4% drop. So right now, as it stands, like 1 in 4, 1 in 5 cameras sold are fixed length cameras, which surprised me a little bit. I'm surprised 1 in 5. And you know who the biggest consumer of fixed length cameras are? Japan. Japan was, for a while, more than half their cameras sold were fixed length cameras. And now it's down to about 36, 37%, but it's still higher than the rest of the world. So it seems like the Japanese really like fixed length cameras. Nearly 1 in 3 cameras, if not more, are sold in Japan are fixed length cameras. I didn't break that data out here separately, but I just wanted to, that was just an observation I made. All right, so those are the hard numbers, and these are just numbers, okay? They're not my numbers. They're fixed length camera interchange. These are the number of cameras announced or released. So January of 2024, interchangeable lens camera, we had the OM1 Mark II, fixed length camera. This was the X100V. This was the OM1-2. That's all we've had in January of 2024, as far as I know. But what's interesting is in 2022, and all right, let's go all the way back here. So in 2018, we had 18 fixed length cameras announced and 21 interchangeable lens cameras announced in 2018. So pretty equal there, right? But then it starts to drop here. 15 fixed length cameras, 28 interchangeable lens cameras. Pretty big drop. Almost twice as many interchangeable lens cameras were announced over uh, fixed length cameras. Then in 2020, 6 versus 23. Now we're talking about a 4-time difference, right? There's almost 4 times as many interchangeable lens cameras announced versus fixed length cameras. And then here, 2021, 18 times difference, 16 times difference, right? One one fixed length camera was announced for 18. I'm sorry, one fixed length camera was announced for 18 interchangeable lens cameras and so on. But this is interesting right here. Suddenly in 2023, there are 5 fixed length cameras announced and only 18 interchangeable lens cameras. So what is what's going on here? Now we're at like 3.5 times difference, right? As opposed to 16 to 1, we're at like 3.5 to 1 here. And the drop from 2023 to 2024, well, this is only 1 month of data, so we can't really look at that. But in January of this year, 22%, so it's following the same trend as 2023, so it's not dropping, right? We'll have to see as the year goes on if this number changes. Again, if the pre-orders are fulfilled for the Fuji X100V, we're going to see a big change here, maybe 5–10% difference, right? But I'm curious to see what happens in 2024 with compact cameras. But this number is interesting to me that this, instead of going to 0, which wouldn't surprise me, no new fixed length cameras, or maybe one, a Fuji X100, right? But there's 5 here. Very interesting to me. So I think in a way, fixed length cameras may be making a comeback in the market. And I attribute that partially due to there does seem to be some demand for it, but also because the camera market is stabilizing in terms of volume of sales. Camera manufacturers can start to expand a little bit more, right? Expand their line a little bit more and take on a little more risk in selling cameras that may or may not sell. They'll be like, there seems to be some demand for this compact camera, especially now the Fuji X100 is a good example. Throughout its release, it's always been kind of like, why is this camera selling? I just don't get it. But they're looking at that and they're like, okay. Sony's released, I think the Sony, those 5 cameras, a couple of them were the Sony like ZV-1F or something, the fixed lens cameras. So some of those are vlogging cameras, and that's why there's 5 there. But there might be a comeback to some fixed length cameras, and in their nature are going to be more compact than interchangeable lens cameras, just by design. For both the basic physics of it, right? You can make them smaller, but also the intended use of fixed length cameras are to be pocketable, travel, all of that. So they're going to engineer them to be smaller by design, and everything is getting smaller. Full frame cameras, APS-C, Micro Four Thirds, they're all trying to get smaller for the most part. Micro Four Thirds seems to be getting bigger, right? But I don't know. What do you guys think? I think they are kind of making a comeback because of this craze for the digicams and the prices I'm seeing on the used market for these stupid cameras. I mean, they're all wonderful cameras, but it'd be stupid to pay, $1,000 for an LX100 version 2. It's ridiculous to me that we'd have to pay $500 for the version 1. I mean, that's almost what it sold for new. I mean, why? These cameras are so old. It just doesn't make any sense to me. Um, I mean, there's a couple of cameras I don't mind paying a little bit more than I think they're worth because there's something unique about them that I like personally. Like I'm gonna get me an Olympus FZ. I think it's an FZ10. uh, it's a little compact camera, but it's such a cool looking little camera. I thought. Um, I'm also thinking about the Olympus 1S, but I'm waiting to find a good deal on it. Because that's an excellent, excellent compact camera. It's about the same size as my EM5 Mark II, but it has a fixed lens in it. It zooms like from 28 to 300, but it's a constant f2.8, and it has a 1/1.7 sensor. But anyhow, let me catch up on the chat again and see where you guys are at. Okay, as far as compact cameras go, I have the Sony RX100V or 7. Often take hike with me. Yeah, 24 to 200, some great shots, but I can't say I love using it. Good results. No soul is Robin. Yeah. It's kind of a cute little camera. I know Marcus Pix really likes that one too, but it's so expensive. They're like $1,000. I'd rather get a little ZV-1, right? For about $600, which is pretty much the same thing, but no EVF. I don't know why it's $1,000, and that's probably why they haven't released like a version 8 is because the little ZV cameras are replacing that. Yeah. Oh, yeah. We had a shortage in components. Yeah, that would impact the sales a little bit too. So maybe that's why it was down 3.5% instead of being up 3.5%. I don't know, but we have to take all these numbers with a grain of salt because there's so many variables in those numbers that are not accounted for, cannot be I have no way of tracing it without doing a ton of due diligence. And then even then it would still be speculation, right? Because I'm not an insider, right? I'd have to rely on publicly available information. I don't know what's really going on behind the scenes. But I still thought it was interesting uh, data. And Fuji has stated that it's 15,000 a month. Yeah, that ain't gonna cut it. It's gonna take them years to fill a million orders. Yeah, quality control rushing may be detrimental to brand loyalty if they flub a badge. Yeah, that would be bad. Ask Nikon, right? Bring back the 1 hour photo. Yes. We had a 1 hour photo not too far from me. They're gone now. They shut down over the pandemic. Unfortunately, I think that's kind of what did them in. And a lot of these places are closing down because they're all old and retiring, and nobody's going to buy 1 hour photo shops, right? As a new business, so they're going to shut down. Take a look at the price of premium compact film cameras. Oh, really? Yeah, I bet they're expensive too. Oh, good to see you, David, by the way. David Tellett is local to me as well as Walter and David Crooks. Lots of great people here. As more people use their phones for photography, they could be hitting limitations on usability and capability. It could drive the interest in dedicated cameras. Yes. Hopefully what drives people to a real camera is just ergonomics and handling and controls, right? Because using a phone is very, very awkward. I only use my phone now to read barcodes and stuff. Like, when I need information, they have those barcode things. People are using that now, I guess. I learned how to do that over the pandemic, because you go to a restaurant and you take a picture of the barcode for the menu because they weren't even giving you a menu back then. Um, But anyhow, that's that. Could be that manufacturers have exited the entry-level market due to phone camera taking over, but now we're getting back into prosumer market. They definitely focused on prosumer, no question. Nikon Z8, Z7 II, Z9, A7R5, A1 Mark III. These are all heavy duty cameras, for the consumer. Uh, and working professionals, so to speak, but they're not super high-end professional gear, but they're certainly, top tier consumer. And and I think the consensus is that these cameras are more profitable because it costs almost as much to make, say, a small compact camera as it does to make a full-size camera in a production scenario. Of course, the research and development cost is much higher on the high-end cameras, but when it comes to actually producing them, um, like I said, I don't have any inside information. I've never worked in the camera industry, and I'm only speculating here based on what they're releasing, and it feels like the compact camera may come back. I don't know, but it might come back with a different purpose. They're gonna come back as vlogging cameras like the ZV-1s. Um, Maybe that's how they come back, as primarily vlogging, video creator type cameras and not as photography tools. I'm just thinking, but then the X100V blows that out of the water because it's never been a video-centric camera. Apparently now it's got good video, but all the same, the focus was never on video with that camera. Um, but certainly Z9, OM1 Mark II, all the high-end stuff, certainly prosumer, but um, there were a lot of cameras. Let me look at it again. Yeah, R8, R50, ZVE1 in April. That's 3 cameras right there that I just listed. I mean, there were more than that, but those are the main ones. And those are all basically entry-level cameras. Uh, then the Z8 and then the A7C2, uh, A7C2, A7CR. These are not really prosumer. These are kind of entry-level full-frame cameras. The ZF, certainly not a prosumer. That's another sort of entry-level full-frame, but more of a specialty camera, right? Um, but I did mention the GFX 100S. That's certainly prosumer, and the G9 Mark II. That's certainly prosumer. So there's still a lot of entry-level mid-range cameras being announced. So I wouldn't say they were mostly prosumer. I would say they were mostly mid-range, entry-level and mid-range. Uh, they are working on it. I was in a meeting with them a couple of weeks ago, and they're working on it. They hope to have it soon, but you know how it is. Mark was asking if there's any insight when DxO is going to be offering OM1 Mark II support. It'll come soon, but I don't have any idea when. But I know they're aware of it. They're aware of that camera. It was brought up a couple of weeks ago in a meeting. And Eric says, I know Sony has much improved, and I don't know the model number, but it was around 2008-ish. I bought a Sony point and shoot that I hated so much at Burke Lake, used it as a frisbee golf. Eric is also local to me. You need to come out to the photo walks. I think next week we're going to some kind of bird thing. I can't remember. But we're going to go take pictures of birds. Um, that's cool. Let me show you guys a couple of pictures from my compact cameras. And then if you have any questions or any other comments, go ahead and leave them now. Hopefully I haven't missed anything. Oh, wow. You have 2 Olympus 1Ss. It always got ignored. So that's why I got 2 at the very good price. Yeah. I'm seeing them for, like, under $300, like 250-ish. I think it's worth it at that price. Um, let me see if I can share. So this is the XZ2. Whoops. Um, wonderful camera. Oops. And this is the XZ2 also, the Olympus XZ2. 12 megapixels with that f1.8 lens. It's amazing. It might be hard to see online, but you can see the stars in the sky, and this is in the city, so seeing any stars is a bonus. Um, but I did some night photography with this, and I didn't have any problems. Let's look at the EXIF data on this one. This one is this one at f1.8, 1/30th of a second, ISO 400. I mean, that f1.8 lens is a big deal, on this little camera. That really allows you to use it at night, handheld. And the XZ2 also has image stabilization, right? This one was 1/50th of a second, f2.1, so I was zoomed in a little bit, ISO 800. But, if you look at this close up, with the processing in DxO Photo Lab and all, there's no noise at ISO 800 or whatever this was in low light. I mean, and look at the detail. I mean, it's really good detail in here. This is another one on the XZ2. Now this one, the resolution is very low because I was using the high-speed shutter, which reduces the size to like 640 by 480. I didn't know that when I started using this camera, but I put the camera in high-speed capture mode and it reduced the wow, STN Rec 64 got I have to show this. 150 each, man. That is awesome. I would buy two if I can get them for 150 each. There's my XZ2 kind of next to my other Olympus cameras. These are my Fujifilm cameras next to my other Fujis. That's my XH2 over here. This camera here was a gift from my dad for my birthday many years ago. This one I got at Walmart. It was like an open box for I paid like $75 for this. Oddly, this camera is not popular, so you can still get it for like 50 bucks or something. And this one is very cheap too. This picture I used that camera to take this picture. And you can see there's plenty of detail in here. I think it's a 16 megapixel sensor. So as with photography in general, and you have good lighting, you can take amazing pictures if you're really good with lighting. Now, this is all artificial lighting because you can see the reflections of the umbrellas and stuff. But if you're outdoors in daylight, you can get good lighting. You can take great pictures with it. This one here, let's see, this was with, yeah, this was with that little blue camera, the XF, this one here. Yeah, this little blue pocket waterproof camera, right? Action camera. This one is a little bit soft. If you punch in, this is the best I could do in post-processing with sharpening and noise reduction and all of that. So, but still, it's acceptable, right? This one here is with the S6, the 800. That's this bridge camera here, right? Zoomed in a little bit. Again, these cameras are like 10 years old, give or take. Yeah, this image, I'm sorry, it wasn't up. This one actually came out a little sharper, but it has a better lens on it. Okay, and then this one I think I took with, this was with my, this is the CCD sensor. This is the little Canon ELPH 180. And this came out pretty good, pretty sharp. Really not bad at all. So that's this one. I think this is the same camera. Yeah, this is the Canon ELPH 180 again. This one. So this takes nice pictures, right? Perfectly fine. 20 megapixel CCD. Whoops. I dropped it. Just took $10 off the. I could sell this for like 300 bucks right now. To everybody that didn't see this live stream, I could sell this. Anyway, this is the, oh, this is an interesting camera. This is the Canon instant print camera. I have that somewhere. But this is one of those cameras that print out, you know, instantly, like the Polaroids, but it comes out on zinc paper. You know, this is a fun little camera. This is the same thing. This is the little Canon IV instant print camera. I paid $80 for this camera. And these are the straight out of camera black and whites that I got from that. Yep, this is a color one. Is this image, whoops, this is 2 megapixels, this image. This is another image from that camera, the MX2700, this one. And here's another one, same one. And I believe these are straight out of camera. I didn't do any processing to these. This one is the Canon ELPH 180. Again, now we're back to this one. This is the straight out of camera black and white, I think. This is another one from the ELPH 180. And I tried to name the files. I don't know if you guys can see way down here the text. I tried to name the files what camera it was on, so that's kind of how I know. This is the TG5. That's a compact camera I didn't even talk about. But TG5, I still have that. I need to use that more. That's a great camera because it shoots RAW. And that is a fantastic camera. This one is the XZ2. Not the, I labeled it XZ1, but this is the XZ2. Nice flaring on the lights there. I really like that. Most people look at that as a defect in the lens, but if you use it creatively, I think you know, you can make some nice images with these imperfections. This is the XZ2 again. Another one with the XZ2. This one is heavily edited though. That's not a straight out of camera image, I can tell you that. XZ2, XZ2. And like I said, because that camera is so low light. Now this image is interesting. This is from the TG. Oh no, this is the XZ2 also. This is actually a reflection in a pond in front of these columns. So I had to turn the picture upside down. This is also the XZ2. No, this is the TG5. I'm sorry. This image is the TG5, and this image is the TG5. Yeah, wonderful camera. This is the TG5. This is the TG5 using the art filters, so that's straight out of camera. This is the TG5 using a slow shutter, obviously. Handheld, by the way. I was standing on a rock. I remember taking this picture with the TG5. But this one is heavily edited. I know I edited this, you know, highlight shadows kind of stuff. This is the TG5, just some street photography. I like this shot. I don't know why. It's just interesting, the story here. Like, why is this lady carrying all this stuff? I mean, is she homeless or is she taking her stuff to a homeless shelter? Like, this is her stuff that she's donating. So I don't know which is which, right? This is the TG5 when I went to the Shenandoah Mountains. TG5 again. Okay, this is when I had the Fujifilm X100F. Yeah, it was Halloween, so there were these weird things everywhere. Fujifilm X100F. I didn't use this camera very much, but you know, I did try to take it out and use the camera and enjoy it, but ultimately it just was not the right camera for me. But it did take beautiful pictures, the X100F. But it again, just didn't vibe with me at all. This is one of my favorite pictures from the X100F that I've ever taken. And if you've been with me a long time, you may have seen this picture before, because I used to use it as a backdrop on my live streams. Um, and that's the X100F. This might be the last one. Oh no, this is my old Fujifilm FX10, which I don't have here. I don't know where I put it, but I use that camera. Of all the Fujis I own, I've used that one the most. I've had that camera since the early 2000s, I think. But it also took, and this is like a 6 megapixel Fujifilm pocket camera. And I took it out for some street photography. I love this picture. Bunch of guys. The reason I like this picture is because this is so atypical of most of the construction scenes that I run across, where they block the entire road, right? And down to one lane sometimes, and traffic is backed up for miles. And there's like all these guys standing around. There's like one or two guys actually doing any work. And then there's the rest of them standing around doing nothing. Um, anyway, my dream job actually is to be the guy that holds the sign, stop, slow, stop, slow. He's probably making like 50 bucks an hour to turn that sign, you know, for traffic. This image I found really interesting because you never know what you're going to see. This is long exposure, of course. How I got those light streaks were there was a bus driving by, so it had lights on the top and the windows, you know. So what you're seeing is the window light and lights on top of the bus, and that's how I got the streaks to go across. But if you look at the back, there's a freaking unicorn in the back. It's not a real unicorn or horse. It's a statue or something. But I mean, what are the odds of running across an old pickup truck and then having a unicorn in the back? I mean, it's a very random thing. This is the XZ2 with a flash, because XZ2 has a hot shoe on it. So that's the one thing that XZ2 has that the TG5 does not, is a hot shoe. And that's why I kind of prefer it over the TG5 in a lot of ways. This is the XZ2 again. This is the old Sony A7R5. That's this bridge camera. This one. This one I had Riley. He was a good boy. He went before his time though, unfortunately. I miss that guy. This is this little bridge camera again. Same one. It has a macro capability, so I got really close up and took a picture of this bug on this flower. And if you guys are familiar with flowers, you know these flowers are really tiny. They're about the size of your thumbnail, right? Again, bridge camera S6800. And that's all I got there. So that's enough of my boring pictures. I feel like you know, like when the grandparent or grandmother brings out the photo album to show everybody, oh, look at these pictures. And everybody's like, oh God, please, please stop. Please, when will it end? You know? But I just wanted to show you that, the image quality from these compact cameras, and these are old compact cameras, you can still get excellent results, and you can take these everywhere with you and capture things. I have so many pictures that from these cameras that I'll cherish forever, uh, because they came out long before cell phones. But I would still rather use one of these little compact cameras than I would my cell phone, even though potentially the image quality may not be as good. Um, because the cell phone just has, I think it's been mentioned before, there's no soul. There's no joy in using a cell phone to take pictures. I'll use it in a pinch if I have to. If there's something happening and I want to capture it, like my sister, she's always whipping out her cell phone and taking pictures, family things, right? And that's just the way it is these days. I think families and friends that wanna capture moments and share them, uh, or not even share them necessarily, just capture the moments for their own personal, right? They're gonna whip out their cell phone, and this is what the compact cameras have to fight. So I think the kind of people that would buy this are people that are going to enjoy photography. So I'm gonna try uh and I've always tried to promote photography as a hobby, to go out and enjoy, like Robin Wong Shutter Therapy, to try and enjoy photography with a camera and not your cell phone. Because a cell phone is very, very distracting. You pick up your cell phone to take a picture, and immediately before you take the picture, you might see like 5 or 6 texts or TikTok or whatever that you want to look at before you take a picture. And then by the time you go to take a picture, the moment's gone or you forgot about it. You're like, oh, I forgot to take a picture of that. But when you have a camera, and all it does is take pictures, you're going to capture the moment. So I hope that compact cameras make a comeback. Not expensive ones like the X100V, but like when I bought this for $130 or whatever I paid for this, or $200-300 cameras that are competent would be nice to have again. So I hope manufacturers start releasing these again and bringing the joy of photography back to, you know, the human race. I don't know. I don't want to be dramatic or anything, but we're definitely losing something by not having these compact cameras, I think, as a society and using cell phones instead. So why are we constantly trying to convince ourselves and other that old chip cameras still take good images? Of course they do. Why should suddenly stop? Yeah, I know, right? Um, the problem is every new camera release promises to be so much better than the previous one, because of the marketing hype, a lot of it. But uh, so when you present to somebody a camera that's 20 years old, it's like, how can that possibly take good pictures? How is that even possible when there's so many advances? Um, and that's when people need to realize that it's not about the gear, right? It's about capturing that moment and the important things in your life and understanding if you want to get into fine art or use it or consider photography and art and be creative. Those are the things that photography is really all about, and not so much the gear, because there's so many capable cameras for little to no money that are not popular but still take great pictures. I'm just looking at the ones that I kind of like, and apparently a lot of other people do, that are just outrageously expensive, unnecessarily so. The good point for mobile phone is just the storage and share the pictures, but photography is using the camera. Yes. Okay, Darko, we'll see you later. Thanks for coming in and hanging out. I appreciate it. In reference to your construction picture, that's daily on 495, the worst last week. Yeah, 270 split during rush hour. Oh, yeah. I haven't tested it underwater yet, but I'm sure it's very good at that. I'm hoping a new OM5 will improve viewfinder, more video capabilities, add some additional computation like the ND filter from the OM1. Yes, any improvement would be nice. That grad ND filter is nice. I mean, it's not enough for me to buy an OM1 Mark II, but that would be nice to have. Introduce an all-new 24 megapixel sensor with the all-new Pen F. Yes. And there's some talk of past the all-new 50 to 200 IS Pro. Maybe. I don't know what I mean, I have a 300 f4, so for me, I'm fine. But a new Pen F with any kind of new sensor would be nice, and better autofocus would be nice. And Walter, you're heading out. Okay, buddy. Thanks for coming in. Yeah, we'll definitely hook up. Let's create a petition for OM System to bring us the XZ3, just the XZ2 body with new sensor processor. It would be okay. That would be nice, wouldn't it? Yeah, there's definitely some fabulous photos from cell phones. If you go to Flickr, the #1 phone on Flickr is the Apple iPhone. By far, people post pictures from an Apple iPhone. Um, and I'm happy people are embracing photography, whether it's through their cell phone or through a, compact camera. I just feel like they're definitely missing the experience of using a real camera. But for some people, that's all they know is using a cell phone camera, and they're channeling their creativity and their soul through their cell phone, which is perfectly fine. It just I guess I'm old and I can't relate to a cell phone. A cell phone to me is just a piece of technology and clumsy and awkward for me. But if this is how you grew up, right, is with a cell phone and not like a legit camera, and you channel and you can channel your creativity through a cell phone, all the better. I mean, I don't want to knock cell phones at all for their image quality or people that can take amazing images with a cell phone. But it's just I think definitely the experience of using a real camera is maybe it's just I'm getting old, I guess. I don't know. And you should try Mason Neck and Pohek. Both are great for birds. I've been to Pohek and Mason. Uh, problem is, Pohek Bay you don't have to pay parking, but Mason Neck you have to pay $10 every time you go in. I can't afford that. That's just I could get an annual pass maybe, but I don't know. They're both quite a bit of a hike with traffic and all. They're about an hour drive for me each, unfortunately. Yep, and the wildlife refuge. Yep, that one I think is free. You remind me of people fearing that photography would replace painting. Yeah, I hope not. That's not my intent. Um, there's certainly a place, I guess, for them to cohabitate together, right? Photography and cell phones. I mean, they're not photography is different than gear. I mean, iPhone is gear, cameras are gear. Photography should be separate from that, right? I'm just trying to relate more of the experience of using a camera versus a cell phone. I think there's a difference, and I get much more joy and feel more creative with a camera than I do with a cell phone, but that's just because I didn't grow up with a cell phone. Cell phone is just a necessity nowadays, but it's never been a camera for me outside of documenting things that I need to document, a business card or um, a particular location or, it's primarily just documenting things, but it's not how I share my photography or can channel my creativity through. And if you've never shot with a real camera, and I'm not talking nobody, I'm sure everybody here shot with a real camera, but If I meet anyone that's never shot with a real camera, I would encourage them to try using a real camera, even a cheap one, and try and experience photography through a camera rather than their cell phone and see if they like it or not. Maybe they won't like it and they want to stick with their cell phone. That's fine. Whatever works for you, but I would encourage people to try. And hello, Derek. Good to see you. And we are too old in our teenage. The Tesla's hi-fi stereo or Bush bike now is only new cell phone. Yeah. Man, don't get me started on hi-fi stereo, man. I need to get mine fixed. I got one from 1984 that the capacitors finally burned out on them. They dry out the capacitors, then they pop, and they can be replaced relatively inexpensively. Uh, so it's more of a nostalgia, sentimental reason I would restore that old amplifier and well, the amplifier anyway. Um, but I still have the speakers, the stereo, the receiver, the cassette deck, and the turntable have long been non-functional. Because they got rubber parts in them and belts, and it's just not worth it to fix those things. It'd be cheaper to buy another one that's been refurbished that would match the system anyway. Smartphones have one advantage over older compacts. Some have very wide lenses, like a 14mm f2, while most compact cameras start at 28, 24. That is hard to compete with. Yeah, that's crazy how wide they are. I mean, I guess the intent is so you can hold it in front of you with 5 of your friends and get everybody in the shot, right? So that's why they created that. I don't think selfies were as big a thing back in the day. Question on low light. I feel manual pushes an image faster and clearer than using autofocus. When I try the OM1, it buffers the shot, yet manual is instant. Is this a true statement? I'm not sure I quite understand what you're trying to tell me, Eric. When I try the OM1, it buffers the shot, yet manual is instant. I'm sorry, I don't quite understand the question. I mean, if you're saying that the camera seems to operate faster in manual mode, and then in autofocus mode, the camera feels sluggish. I haven't noticed that, but I don't quite understand what the question is. Because you say it buffers the shot. I just don't, not sure I understand. Maybe you could rephrase it for me. I'm all thumbs trying to shoot with a phone. Yeah, me too, right? Dream camera, or I'm sorry, I think such a camera design like the Olympus XA clamshell design sell like hotcakes and would make a lot of money for OM systems, even if it used 20 megapixel sensor and kept the price down. Maybe, maybe they could bring those back because the Olympus stylus used to have the clamshell, right? It would slide open and closed. And then there's the XA film camera, which I have one back there. My friend listens to music on Bluetooth speaker and calls me old as I have a stereo receiver and real speakers. I know, right? I use the iPhone to take photo of my finger pointing at a tiny mushroom. Yes, after doing macro stacking with OM1 and 90 macro lens to get a perspective of size rather than reset the camera. Oh, that's a good idea, right? Again, it's kind of a documentary function, right? You're documenting how you took the shot. So you got scale and stuff. Monochrome Pentax K3 was sold out because the production rate in Ricoh is much smaller than what the competitors have. Okay. So I tried low 18 millimeter in super dark room focus on Christmas lights. I would get the focus and get an instant shot. I tried 20 millimeter f Pro next, and when you took the shot, you had to hold still. Mm, so I'm not quite sure where that's going. Sorry, I'm sorry, Eric. I'm still lost on that. How that didn't help me at all. I'm trying to understand your question. But maybe just leave a comment after the stream's over and just really fully elaborate what you're trying to say. Uh, and I'll try and answer it or share with you if I have the same experience what you're talking about. I haven't noticed any difference between autofocus and manual focus in terms of the camera's performance overall, but I'm still not sure what maybe, but I need to be able to duplicate your issue, right? And that's a lot of the times when I get a question in the comment sections, it's usually something not usually, but sometimes it's something I've never experienced before, and I have to duplicate what the question is, right? What the problem is. And then once I can duplicate it, I might be able to solve the problem or make a workaround. Um, but yeah, okay. Yeah, right, Marco. I'm a little bit lost, but yeah, Eric can leave a comment and really elaborate, and then I can comment back if I have further questions about what he means. We can kind of correspond through the comment section after the stream. But I need to go eat some lunch and then go out and take some pictures. Um, and I have a delivery of one of the new cameras coming today, so hopefully that'll come in before I head out, and I'll try and make a video on that. I also have a video on a tripod extension arm that I need to do. We're gonna talk about. I talked about it last week. I thought I could do it this week, but I'm just not. I'm not doing well with flat lay photography. It's a lot harder than I thought it'd be. Um, but I'm gonna do some flat lay photography. Hopefully, I can do that this week. I have some lighting products. So many products. I don't know why in the wintertime they send me all this stuff to review. I can say no to I do say no to a lot of stuff, but there's some stuff that's kind of, useful. But it all comes at once, and I've had to say no to stuff that I actually do want to review, but I said I can't do it. I got too many other things going on right now. Um, but one is really neat. This lighting product I got. I don't think I can talk about it yet. It hasn't been released yet, but it's a pretty neat little light. Uh, But okay, that's all I have for today, guys and ladies. Thanks so much for coming in today. I really appreciate it. I appreciate all your support and coffees and gifts. Thank you again, Marco, for the base plate. I definitely really appreciate that. It's exactly what I wanted for my OM1. So now I'm not going to sell it. I'm going to keep it because I would never sell this camera unless it was for another OM system camera. So. Uh, next week I have Emily and Lee Hoy coming on as guests, and then tomorrow is another live stream. I think I posted about that, but check that out. Tomorrow, Emily has something on her channel, big event, a bunch of Olympus ambassadors coming together talking about wildlife. So talk about that, or what? Make sure you catch that if you can, either during live or after the fact. But you guys have a great weekend. What's left of it, and we'll see you again next week. I lost my mouse. There it is. See you guys.